Welcome to In the Community with Tiffany K.
And we're back with In the Community. I'm Tiffany K. And today we're going to be talking all about one of my favorite things, and that is reading. And I have Jodi, who is the Senior Vice President of Marketing with Reading is Fundamental with me. Jodi, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate it.
Well, Jodi, reading is actually one of my favorite pastimes, and I'm definitely an advocate for getting more people to read, especially children. So I love that this is what we're talking about today. So let's just kind of get into the nitty-gritty details. What exactly is Reading is Fundamental? Like, tell me a little bit about your organization.
Sure. So Reading is Fundamental is a children's literacy nonprofit organization. We, believe it or not, were founded in 1966, so we've been doing this work for over 56 years. And although the wording of our mission may have changed slightly, at the end of the day, we're about getting books into the hands of children and really inspiring a joy of reading so that kids want to read. And that's what we do every day.
The decline of reading in our country is definitely a big issue that a lot of us are talking about, especially with our youth. So can you give us a little bit more information about that? Are there any statistics that would be helpful to know? Just kind of giving an overview of what this looks like.
Sure, of course. So if you look at the National Association of Educational Progress, they measure reading proficiency every 4 years. In totality, you're looking at about 25 million children in the U.S. who are not reading proficiently, and that's like a very stark number.
Wow.
And we believe it's truly a cyclical literacy crisis. But when you drill down and truly look at different grade levels, there's two very important levels to look at. There's entering kindergarten, and you don't have to enter kindergarten reading, but you need to have basic skills. You need to have heard lots of vocabulary words. You need to have been exposed to reading. And if you look at the data, 1 in 3 children entering kindergarten lack the basic skills they need to learn how to read. So that's a concern. And then you look at 4th grade. The kind of model is by 4th grade, children need to read at grade level in order to succeed after. Because after 4th grade, you're not just learning to read, you're reading to learn. So if you want to learn math and science and social studies, you have to be able to read at a skilled level. And 67% of 4th graders read below grade level. And that truly then sets them up for difficulty in school and beyond. And it should be a concern for everybody. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I was just going to ask you, is part of this also making sure that you're working with your child outside of school before they go into kindergarten?
Yeah, I mean, parent engagement and being part of your child's reading journey is critically important at all stages in a child's life. And you can obviously never take away the importance of the educator,
of course,
and reading instruction and what happens in the classroom. But it's what happens outside the classroom and creating that culture of literacy at home that prepares your child and gives them that extra advantage and be ready to learn to read. And we believe that from the day a child is born all the way through high school, the parents can do so much to really set their child up for success. The challenge is not every family has the opportunities, the resources, the time. And what we've found, unfortunately, is that 61% of U.S. children living at or below the poverty line at home don't have books. That's really where Reading is Fundamental tries to come in, because we believe every child should have a book in their home. Because when you have a book and you can read and you're more engaged, that's only going to help your reading skills as you develop.
And that's an important point to make, too, because I think a lot of times, you definitely think of reading being taught in school, but it's important to remember to do it outside of school with your child as well. I grew up, my mom was reading to me every night, or I was reading to her.
Oh, exactly. And, I have 2 daughters. They're older now. One's actually a teacher. And reading was just part of our routine every single night. And books were everywhere. And that shouldn't be different for any child. That should be part of every child's ability to learn, to thrive, and to grow. I think it's also important to note when you look at the reading scores that came out in 2022, we saw lows that we haven't seen in 30 years. The pandemic made a big difference. It really impacted children's ability to learn to read. When you're reading, and learning through a screen, it's very different than when you're sitting in a classroom face to face. So we have a lot to catch up on, but at RIF, we feel that it's obviously not going to take 30 years to change that trajectory.
Right.
But we all have to come together as a village, and it's the family, it's the educators, it's nonprofits, it's community members, but truly the family is a big part of helping their child along on this journey.
What do you think are some of the causes of these lowering numbers?
Well, I think a couple things. I think when you look at 2022, the pandemic obviously had an impact. As kids were learning online, we did our own survey at Reading is Fundamental, about 1,000 educators, and what we heard over and over again were kids are just losing their interest in reading. Their motivation's going down. Their frequency is going down. Help. We need things to really engage kids. So I definitely think the pandemic and distance learning made a big impact. If you look at the numbers, they show that we were at a 30-year low in our reading numbers, and I do believe that the pandemic had a big part of that. I think also it's just, there's many communities that are more under-resourced. They don't have book access. There's a statistic that about 61% of U.S. children who are living at or below the poverty line don't have a book in their home.
Oh, wow.
And when you don't have a book in your home, you don't have access. And, it's all a cycle, and it really begins with the book. Reading is fundamental. We don't teach reading. I mean, we leave that to our brilliant and committed educators and teachers.
Right.
But what we do is we create access to books and choice to books and joy in reading.
Okay, so tell me a little bit more specifically about that, how you're addressing that literacy crisis.
Okay, so we have, I'll start with a little bit about the programs that we offer.
Okay.
So as a nonprofit, donors give us money, corporate partners support us, and we'll look at communities that they want to support. And we have 3 different types of programs that we bring into communities. We do schools, we do youth-serving organizations, school-adjacent like boys and girls clubs, YMCAs. So we have a program called Books for Ownership, and its very essence is we provide books that the school or the community partner can give to children. They all get to choose. It could be 1 book, it could be 3 books, it just depends. Often these program sites will host what we call a book celebration event. We really want kids to walk in and see these books and feel joy. We want them to be excited. We want them to be inspired. And then we want them to choose, because it is research data shows that when a child chooses the book that they are going to read, they're going to be more excited and engaged.
Of course.
And the more you read, the better you read. So that's Books for Ownership, and it's all about book choice and access. Then we have a program called Read for Success. I like to say sometimes it's like Books for Ownership on steroids.
Okay.
So it not only includes all the books for the children, whether it's like a classroom or a full school, but we offer book collections, so read-aloud books for the teachers to use in the classroom, and then all types of guides and activities to really complement both in school and at home, because it's very important that parents are engaged in their child's reading journey as well. And then the third program we offer is Skybrary. It's like our library in the sky. It's a digital ebook service. So there's about 1,000 ebooks and hundreds of videos. I'm not sure if you're familiar with LeVar Burton. Of Reading Rainbow, he gifted this to Skybrary to Riff about 5 years ago. So we hear a lot about the print book, and I believe I love touching a book. I'm still want to hold my book and read it.
I'm right there with you.
Right. I love to hold my book. And I want to walk into a bookstore or a library, and I want to touch my books and feel them and really see what they're about. But, we have to meet kids where they are today. And at the end of the day, many kids are also they're digital natives. And so we also having an ebook service is, one way to ensure that we can really support kids where they are in their learning process.
I'm talking with Jodi, who is the Senior Vice President of Marketing with Reading is Fundamental, all about reading and the literacy numbers in the U.S. right now. Jodi, can I ask you, how did you get involved in this?
So I've been at Reading is Fundamental for 7 years. Ironically, I came from Discovery Communications. People know the Discovery Channel. I was in our education division.
Oh, okay.
So I'd really been immersed in understanding the importance of education and content and the type of content. I thought I was going to take a break and slowly retire, and then somehow I did a special project for Riff, and then the mission's so near and dear to my heart. And like you, I love to read. When my daughters were young, I couldn't imagine not having a room full of books and reading every night. So I just became a part of the mission, and 7 years later, I'm still here because I just feel we can't walk away. We have to ensure reading is truly the fundamental building block. If a child cannot read, they don't have the building blocks to be successful. If you can't read, you can't code. If you can't read, you can't do STEM. You can't be an engineer. You can't be a chef. So we have to ensure that every child, it is a right, not a privilege to be able to read, and we all have to do our part in that.
I love that, and I love your enthusiasm for this project as well, because I agree with you. Without reading, you can't really get to anything done in life. You're not going to be successful in what you're doing. So I think getting that message out there to read more is definitely needs to be a bigger push in our areas as well. And, you know, I know one of the things that you're doing is your Rally to Read 100. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
I definitely can. I feel like I've said to the people, this is like my third child. I love Rally to Read 100.
Okay.
So 3.5 years ago, we were sitting in a room and we were talking about the pandemic and what it's done to children's reading motivation. And we'd also hit a very large milestone as an organization. We had just supported our 100 millionth child. So we were like, what can we do to really speak to our mission and inspire great reading fun that could be for anyone in the country, any child, any family, any school, any classroom. And so there came the idea of Rally to Read 100. So what Rally to Read 100, and it's now in its third year, is it's a 6-month reading engagement initiative. It launched October 1st. It is over March 31st this year. And every month we pick a theme. So, for example, we kicked it off in October with the theme of community. And then we have 2 great read-alouds. One is brought to us, we have a partnership with Barnes & Noble. We have a Barnes & Noble Storytime Pick. And then we have a great partnership with a publisher, Penguin Random House. So authors lend their time, and we so appreciate it. And they do read-alouds. And then we put them on our website. So it's so amazing for a child to hear an author sharing his or her story directly to a child. And it could be super polished, like we have Elizabeth Olsen and Robbie Arnett this last month, or it could be really grassroots where we had this one young author. It was so fun. She was reading her story and she made a mistake, and then she goes, oh, that's okay, because don't we all make mistakes when we read? Like, a child could really, that resonates with a child.
Yeah.
So every month you can just go to rallytoread.org, and we archive all the videos. You can watch the read-alouds. You can download. There's an activity you can do at home. There's activities for the teachers they can do in the classroom. We ask the kids to take a pledge to read 100 books over the 6 months. So by National Reading Month, which is March, you've read 100 books. This will be our third year. We are giving away 10,000 books. So any K through 5 educator can apply, enter the sweepstakes. It actually ends on the 29th, so there's still a few days if anybody hears this. And they can win 100 books for their school organization. So this will be the third year. There'll be 30,000 books that we've given away.
Oh, wow.
And it's incredibly exciting, and the read-alouds are fun, and kids love to watch them. And it's just a great way to, you know, make it something that's free and easily accessible, that you can be done anytime in a classroom or at home, to really engage in the reading process. If you look at research, it's very important that kids have someone reading. It's important to read independently, but it's just as important to have somebody read aloud to you.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that program. And how many books you're giving away for a grand prize winner just for being able to read. I love it. I really do. And my question to you is, for the Rally to Read, how do people get involved? How do they get more information for that?
Sure. I would just say go to Rally, R-A-L-L-Y, to read.org, and you'll see it's a fun website, and you can, you know, watch the videos. They're easy to find. The themes this year are really amazing themes for both classrooms and families to talk with their kids about, from community culture and change makers to wellness and compassion and inquiry. So there are themes that every teacher is going to want to talk about. A family, what a great activity to do in the evening or on the weekend if you have 15 minutes. The read-alouds are easy to find. And then if you want to do an activity, there's also, like, if you want to download their certificate where you can sign my child read 100 books, or a reading log. If you want to, you know, kids like to track their reading. They want to see progress. They want to see momentum. So there's a reading log that you can download. There's all kinds of activities that we provide that are free that you can look up around the idea of 100. We've passed this, but, you know, for example, how do you celebrate the 100th day of school through reading? So it's super simple. It's just rallytoread.org. Go. Free, watch the videos, and enjoy them.
And I'm speaking with Jodi. She is the Senior Vice President of Marketing at Reading is Fundamental. Now, Jodi, you did just mention that March is National Reading Month. So what are some of your tips to get kids involved in reading for parents or other educators? As this month comes along, it's a big time to kind of give that big push.
It is. It's a great month to really, you know, rally around, no pun intended, reading with your kids. One thing that we're offering, and then I'll share some other just great ways to get your kids involved, is the way that we celebrate National Reading Month is we do an event, a live stream event. So on March 7th, live from Barnes & Noble in Union Square in New York City, we're hosting an event called Reading Inspires. And it's all about the impact. You know, you read a book and it makes you curious or inquisitive, And that leads to like so many wonderful things for a child. So we have a wonderful young host. Her name is Ruby Chitsey. She was the 2022 CNN Young Heroes Young Wonder. At the age of 10, she started her own nonprofit called Three Wishes for Ruby, and we like to say her superpower is making wishes for senior citizens. And she's also a children's author, so she's written a book. So she's going to be hosting, and our two amazing guests are Hoda Kotb of the Today Show, also a New York Times bestselling author, and she's going to be reading aloud to hopefully everybody tuning in, called Hope As I Know, a book that she wrote for her daughter Hope. And we also have author Chris Grabenstein, who is a really prolific writer. He's written tons of middle school books that's really well known, the Limoncello series, but he also has younger books, and one that he's reading is called No Is All I Know, about a little boy named Oliver who only uses the word no. So they're going to be reading these books. They're going to be sharing some fun activities. They're going to be answering questions from the audience, and that is going to be on March 7th at 1 p.m., and you can just go to rallytoread.org/event. And the link will be there. And if somebody wants to watch it when it's over, we're going to leave it on the site for the month of March, because I think it's going to be just a fun way to get kids excited during March to read a book. So that's one thing that we're just doing. In addition, Reading is Fundamental has a website called Literacy Central. If you go to riff.org, it's /literacy-central. What we've done is there's about 30,000 free reading resources on that website.
Oh, wow.
So you can't get the books. We like to say it's the website for everything but the book. But let's say your child has a favorite book. For example, let's see, one of our books from Rally to Read is called Nesting Dolls. You could go search nesting dolls, and there you can think, I can do a puzzle. I can do a coloring sheet. I want more books about this topic. You can get a book list. If you're a teacher, you can get a lesson plan. We have centers on independent reading, on sustainability. There's just lots of tools. So if a family member or an educator is looking for a trusted resource and doesn't want to have to do a lot of vetting, you go to Literacy Central, and at your disposal is about 30,000 resources that really can create that. We like to say we'd like to create a culture of literacy in the school and at home. It's not just the book, but it's everything about the book that gets kids interested.
Well, that's a really great resource to have. As you said, it's not the books, but it's a great way to get started into that literacy practice.
Right. Like when you read a book with your child, you think, what can you do in March? It's really important there's tips on how to read aloud with your child. So, start with the title. What is the title? What do you think this book is going to be about? And then for what would be 3 things you're going to want to know and reread it? And then as you're reading it, change your voice. Maybe bring little props. And then look at the illustrations, talk about the illustrations, ask questions. There's so many ways to get a child involved in reading that really can support their reading journey, besides just handing them the book and saying, go. And that's important too, right? You want a child to explore, to be able to read the book, to sound out words, to spend the time. But it's just as important to be engaged in the process with them.
And one of the other things I wanted to talk about, because, we're talking about reading and while you're in school during the school year, the parents helping out. What about during the summer? Is this a concern that you see happening?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I don't have the specific data, but I will say, our head of content, who has a PhD in literacy and research, we've talked about this. She has shared with me that most children lose about a month's worth of reading and math during the summer.
Oh, wow.
And it's most prevalent on children who live in more under-resourced communities. Children in other communities often will have enrichment opportunities such as summer camps and school-adjacent programs, and those help keep, summer reading up. So we truly believe at Reading is Fundamental that the summer is a critical time to engage your child, and we have lots of tips for that. And then as well, every summer we put out a program called, Soar into Summer, and we come up with a new theme. And this summer, once Rally to Read ends, which we've talked about,
yes,
we don't want to lose momentum. We want kids to continue to be engaged. You don't want to stop in March and then have just the lull until when school starts again.
Right.
So our summer reading is going to be all about action-packed pages. And we're going to offer all these fun reading collections on different themes, like Under the Stars, about outdoors and camping and stargazing, all the way to, drama, music, and arts, celebrating creativity and foster self-discovery through performances and musical journeys and colorful expressions through arts and crafts. So what we will do is provide book ideas for families. And then for every single theme, there'll be an interesting activity, because we believe that the more you engage a child in the story, just don't read it, but give an option for the child to engage in it, have an activity. So if you're talking about children's yoga, there's a story on yoga, then do a small video of doing yoga with your child. So it takes the story just from the print pages or the e-pages, and it allows the child to interact and be part of the story. And that helps create engagement and interest. And the more a child is interested and engaged, the more they're going to read.
And I love the way that you add the activity into it. As you said, the more they can do something active with it, the more they want to read. And I think that's such a smart way to do so as well. And is this program free for families and children who want to get involved?
It's free for everyone. So starting on May 1st, if you go to rif.org/summer, there'll be a whole page of content, all the themes, book collections. We're offering families to take a pledge to read, and the first 200 children to take the pledge will get a free book.
Oh, wow.
We have a relationship with Time for Kids and Highlights, two amazing children's magazines. And as part of our summer campaign, they will be offering free digital versions. So families that may not have access to these magazines can get them online for free during the month of the summer with us. So we give tips if you want to create a book club with your child and a few of their friends over the summer. We give lots of ideas on how to create that book club. So we want to make it easy. We want to be a trusted source, and it's obviously free because everybody should get to be able to participate in summer reading.
I love that. And you said some of these tips that you had are also on the website as well, correct?
Yes, all of this at rif.org/summer. But in addition, there's just some easy things to think about as a family, a parent, a caregiver when the summer's approaching. And these are all ways you can be part of getting your child excited to read. And they're very simple, but I think they're worth sharing because I think sometimes we just forget. It's the everyday that can help. But, visit a library or a bookstore. Doesn't mean you don't have a library card. What a wonderful time to go get a library card with your child. If there's not a library close by, there's reading corners in the bookstore and plenty of opportunity for a child to choose. And I think I've already shared this, but it's so critical for a child to choose the book they want to read because then they get to choose something they are interested, not necessarily what a caregiver or a babysitter or a parent is interested in. And that makes a huge difference. That's just one option. Also, involve your child in selecting what they read, like I said, giving them those opportunities, including, remember, it doesn't have to be a storybook. It could be an informational book. If your child's super interested in the stars, go pick out a book on the stars. It doesn't just have to be fiction. Nonfiction is just as important. And what we're doing, which is one of our big tips, is combine books with activities, and that's why we're doing the action-packed pages. If you read a book about the park, go see a park. If you read a book about an interesting character, maybe there's a movie about that character. If you're reading a book about, summertime pastimes, go to the beach. And then I know it's not easy for every family to do that, but there's lots of local opportunities that a family can look for. And, another tip we often share is you're the best model for your child. So lead by example. Read the newspaper at breakfast. Pick up a magazine when you're sitting at the pediatrician's office. Stuff a paperback book in your beach bag as you head out. When your child sees their family member reading and excited and engaged, they want to model that behavior, and that's an easy thing that everybody can do. Talk it up. Share your excitement for reading. When you tell your kids what you're reading and why you like it, and maybe an interesting thing about the character, they're going to become a part of the conversation. So. Like I said, there's so many ways you can engage your child, and probably one of the most important is just making time, helping your kids find time. They're so active and busy, whether it's school activities, but in the summer, camps and sports and whatever they're doing. You know what? Make the activity reading, whether it's 15 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day or 5 minutes a day, make it a destination. I mean, we have families that share with us all the time where they create little cozy reading corners, or they'll put a tent in the backyard and have like an outdoor reading time. So there's so many creative ways to get your kids excited this summer.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of those tips, because I think they're everyday things that you can add into your lives. It's not hard. It's not taking a big step. And honestly, it's really going to help, I think, boost those numbers for reading in the U.S.
I agree. Every little step we take makes a child more excited and engaged in reading, and the more they read, the more they are going to succeed.
And I'm speaking with Jodi. She is the Senior Vice President of Marketing at Reading is Fundamental. Now, Jodi, is there any other resources that you want to share today for families and educators listening that can help young readers?
No, I would just say reading is all around you. If you're cooking, take out your recipe and point out the words to your child. If you're taking a walk, look at the signs and read them out loud. If you're at the grocery store, there's words everywhere. So I think, yes, as Reading is Fundamental, we want you to pick up a book. We're very much about putting books in the hands of children or using, Rally to Read or Literacy Central. But there is words and reading opportunities anywhere you go. And don't think graphic novels, it does, any kind of book is a book. Every kind of word is a word and will help your child. So that's like the biggest advice that we like to give is look for opportunities in your day-to-day. While you're driving a car, you see a stop sign. You can spell the word. What does that say? There's always an opportunity to get your child excited to read.
And is there any way that the community can get involved with Reading is Fundamental? Donations, partnering?
Well, appreciate you asking that. You can always get involved through donations if you go to RIF.org, RIF.org, readingisfundamental.org. Obviously, all the work that we do is through donations and corporate partners and foundations and really generous people that allow us to keep getting books into the hands of children. And if you want to know more about volunteer opportunities, you can go onto the website and how you can partner with us. Just go to RIF.org and you'll find all kinds of opportunities.
And Jodi, finally, are there any social media accounts that we should be following along with?
Yeah, Reading is Fundamental is on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and we're everywhere. So, please look us up. We'd love to. We have a newsletter if anyone is interested. It's once a month, so you wouldn't be deluged with emails, and it really shares with you about things like Rally to Read, resources. Every month, if there's a theme, we'll provide, hey, here's a great book to read with your child or at school. Here's a really fun event taking place. We really try to keep people aware of the ways they can be a part of, again, I say a child's reading journey, whether it's in school or at home, and that's the role that we want to play. We want to ensure that every child has the ability to read and succeed.
Well, thank you so much, Jodi, for being on with me today, the Senior Vice President of Marketing at Reading is Fundamental. Remember, March is Reading Month, so make sure to get that book in your kid's hand. And I am a huge advocate for reading, so I love being able to hear about these organizations that are helping to push those literacy rates up in the U.S. So thank you so much for being on with me.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Have a great day.
You too.
And that'll do it for In the Community this week. If you are a nonprofit and need to bring attention to your cause or organization, please reach out through this station's website, and we will see you next week.